Hello, and you're welcome back to this week's Unfiltered Autistic Podcast. And I'm so delighted to say that I'm joined this week by none other than Angela Cummins, I suppose a long-time friend. I think we were chatting earlier saying about a decade-long friendship. Myself and Angela have known each other for a very long time, and Angela is a teacher and also a PhD candidate. So before we move on to, I suppose, what we're going to talk about today, which is how to be an inclusive school and also the importance of the collaborative nature of the relationship between the teacher and SNA, I'll hand you over to Angela, who can let us all know a little bit more about herself and the fabulous human being that she is. So Angela, welcome to the podcast and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for having me on your fantastic podcast. I am honoured. My name is Angela and I have been teaching for over 20 years, and a lot of my teaching has been working with children with additional needs in both mainstream and special settings. I went back to college. I suppose I did a master's in education in Maynooth, where I looked at transitions of children with additional needs from primary to post-primary. And then I went and did a master's in autism in DCU, where I looked at the leadership in DEIS Band 1 schools with autism classes and the pressures that primary schools were being put on to being mandated to open additional classes without actually having the facilities or the space. Places like school libraries, which is a much needed place for everybody, and schools who really wanted to open autism classes and were not being given permission. So that was kind of the road I had gone down with that master's. That led me on to do a graduate diploma in educational leadership, which I did in Maynooth. And there I was looking at absenteeism and school-based related anxiety, which a lot of people would know as school refusal. And I suppose that research really showed that our numbers in primary schools, I only looked at primary, is rising quite high post-COVID. So I'm now doing a doctorate research in DCU. I just finished year 1 yesterday of a 4-year degree, doctoral degree, and that's my area of focus. And in the day, I work in a DEIS Band 1 primary school in Dublin. We have just been given DEIS Plus status, and in that school, I teach in our autism class. I've previously worked in our school as a support teacher, and I was in our autism class for 4 years from 2018 to 2022. But how I started that class and how I started this class in 2025 is completely different. So I'm constantly learning all the time as a teacher, and I'm constantly adapting everything to the children's needs so that they get the absolute best of education in our school.
Gosh, Angela, that's actually just even listening to you and all of your qualifications, but even just the depth of your knowledge base and the research that you've undertaken, like really, as you say, from where you started, say, in your first, say, autism class to where you are now, like that must really feed into your own depth of knowledge and experience. All that research, do you feel, because you're obviously in your DEIS Band 1 Plus, do you feel like that research even feeds into your own perspective now in your role as a teacher into what is an inclusive, say, school?
Absolutely. And a huge part of the reason why I wanted to do the research is because I could see within our own school where we had dropping numbers of children and junior infants, and their absenteeism was really, really high. And we all know that if a child is missing in junior infants and they're missing in senior infants and so on, that the support that those children will need as they go through school, but also the negativity associated with school for those children. You know, sometimes people will say, oh, it's only children that have additional needs or are neurodiverse that are in that bracket, but it isn't. There's lots of children from lots of different backgrounds that are struggling to come to school on a daily basis. And I suppose that was where I went into deeper research, and that's where I am currently researching. So it will hopefully impact eventually the children that I actually work with on a daily basis.
As you mentioned there, children that don't come to school for a variety of reasons. So how can we make the school inclusive for all children? Would you think that's kind of what your research may lead you towards in your PhD studies, or no? Or what do you find?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think it is for all children. Like we all, every school needs children in the building in order for them to be educated. And the more school that those children miss, the more they will fall behind. But also that negative association with school will get bigger and will get harder for the family as well, because we have to remember in all this, you know, we're talking about figures and numbers, but there's children's lives and their families' lives and the struggle and the stress for families. If there is a situation where their child has school-based related anxiety and they can't get the child to come into the school, we would run different programs from our school where we would actually go to children's families, or we would sit outside the school building and have actual different things that we know the children may like, just to build that little relationship with the children. But we are only one school, and I don't know many schools that do the things that we do in order to facilitate attendance. And it is also around building that really positive relationship with school, because a child may have had a negative situation in school and then doesn't want to come back in, or a parent may have had a very negative journey through school and that still feel that. So that association is still there. So it's about breaking that for us. But that's a very hard one to break if the children are not coming to the building.
And do you think that's where the key relationship between the teacher and the SNA come in, say, as a collaborative approach to supporting the child, supporting the family, to feel that school is a safe place where you can be yourself, that you can have your needs met? Do you feel that that's an essential piece when we think about why is it so important when we look at the relationship of teacher, SNA, and why then a school, for it to be an inclusive school, why that relationship has to be central?
It's huge. I mean, the relationship and the whole relationship building is massive. Like, for example, a particular child that I was working with last year really struggled just to come into the building. Really struggled. And Mum was so worried and so upset. And so I used to sit outside the main school door, and I had different things that I knew the child liked. But even with that, it took us, I'd say, 2 weeks before the child was even coming over to me. And that meant that the SNA in my class had to stay in my class with other children while I was trying to build this relationship. Then we got inside the door. This took 4 months. We got inside the door, and then the child started to just sit beside me. Now, there was no interaction. The child was just sitting there, and Mum was still sitting on the other side, and she was so upset. It was such a distressing time for her parent, because all she wanted was her child to go into the building like every other child was going into the building. And for her child, the child was just so anxious. It just wasn't going to happen straight away. And after months of us, the two of us there, the child really liked cars, and I had different cars and I'd be driving them, and then the child started to drive them. And then I asked, now really, really fortunate that I have a really supportive principal and deputy who completely buy into anything that they think will help and support children. I asked for one particular SNA to be freed up to come out, because I knew that even if I was able to get the child to our classroom, then there was all going to be strange adults in the room. So that wasn't going to help either. Behind the scenes, I had given the parent all the pictures of all the staff in the school. We had all done little videos. So the mum had actually been shown the child all of these, and the child definitely recognised people. But I was just so conscious that if we were to get to the classroom, then it's more strange. So one particular SNA then was freed up. So then we started just driving the cars together, and the child, I could see, was getting kind of involved. And by the time we'd get the child to the classroom, the child would be really settled, calm, and I would always phone Mum straight away, say, look, everything's okay, because I knew she was sitting out in her car in tears, and I know what that's like as a parent, so I'm very aware. And then we took it that one day we were in the class, and I would use lots of different things to teach. So one of the things we were teaching, we were using a Playmobil ambulance, and we were opening the doors and closing the doors, and I'll use whatever it is that children are interested in to teach. And the next day I went out, and I was thinking I'm going to be out here for probably an hour, and I had cover in my class, so they were kind of organised to do things, but I brought the ambulance with me, and I said, will we drive it? And the child just took it and drove it straight to the class. There was no, and I could see for the child's mum, and she just kept staring. And next of all, within 2 minutes, we have class dojo, so I see messages straight away. She's messaged me straight away, is everything okay? I'm like, yeah, we're in the class. And from that day on, I'd just bring out the ambulance and the child would come in straight away. But I couldn't have done that without the SNA being able to manage the rest of the children in the class with it. Now I have 3 SNAs, but also with her coming out, then it meant that if I wasn't there or I had to go to a meeting, she was there, and she was the familiar face. And they have a really good relationship now. But all those relationships have to work from the start. So our class this year, and I know it's May now, but the 3 SNAs and 6 children, none of us had ever worked together. So I talked to the girls beforehand. We went for breakfast and I would know them. Obviously, I'm working in the school over 8 years, like. And I said, look, I said, this is our WhatsApp group. So we have one with obviously our management team, and then we have one with just us. And our logo is Calm is Contagious. And we are all very similar in
Love it.
our manner. And we all have a very similar outlook. We all just want the very best. We've all done the relay training. It's very child-led in our class and it's very play-based. And I had a parent who said that she just wanted to be able to go into Tesco and grab bread and milk, but every time they pull it up into the car park, her child gets very distressed. And I said, look, well, part of what I do, and I think it's really important, is life skills for children so that going forward, that they can go in to Tesco and get their own bread, or they can get on a Dublin bus with a Leap card and tap it. So we've been doing a lot of programs like that. And the Tesco trip actually went really, really well. I actually do take pictures for parents and I send them on. And the following morning, like I think when Tesco just opened, Mum brought her child there and the child went in and did the exact same thing. So I suppose I'm always in such contact with parents that I need to know what they need as well from me so that I can help them in the best way I can. But I can't do any of that unless I have a really strong SNA team who are on board with doing all these things. And the girls are like, we really do work together because we want the best outcomes for the children that we work with. But also across the school, like that collaborative piece with all of our other class teachers, all those different collaborations can't happen unless I have good working relationships with other teachers and SNAs. And then I have 3 children that come over every day from first class. It's really, really important that they have that safe space. And it works both ways. Like if I'm in a situation where one of my SNAs is out, but I know that one particular child really, really needs to be in their class at a particular time, I can ring that class teacher and say, look, could your SNA come over and take my child over for, I don't know, it's a little bit less time, but just to keep that consistency going for the child. That's really important to me.
I just want to say, as a parent to 4 neurodivergent children, my gosh, my hat is off to you. What a phenomenal professional you are, but also human being to build out all of these practices and programs to support all of the students. But even it really touched my heart when you're talking about the little ambulance and helping the child feel safe. Like, I mean, I know you're in Dublin. I wouldn't mind kidnapping you and putting you into a few schools here in the West. I know they'd all be delighted to have you. And I know you referenced like, oh, it's the leadership, the principal, the deputy, but it's also you, Angela, and the relationship that you can build with your team and then across the school into the mainstream, to the teachers and to the students. Like I've been very lucky to know you for a very long time, but I suppose I've never had the opportunity to really hear about how it is that you work and your perspective, but like, I won't say I was going to cry because I probably could cry, but it was really hitting me in the heart because I am a parent of 2 boys in particular that have a PDA profile and they can find a tricky day to day to even try and go to school. Now, we're very lucky, the phenomenal teachers and SNAs and principals, and we're just very, very lucky. But I know not everybody, not that they don't have the access, but maybe there just isn't the availability or to maybe spread out, say, the teacher that can come to the front of the school, or maybe the teacher doesn't have the knowledge base through no fault of their own. They're trying to do their best and there's so much to learn and have that availability. So for me, just to hear what you're doing all of the time and even the relationship building that you were having with your own SNAs, like how important that is for you to have that strong relationship with the SNA. So you're a cohesive team, not only for yourselves to like run this beautiful, inclusive classroom in an incredibly inclusive school, but also for the children. Like, as you say, you're building positive experiences for the children, but also for families, like families just like my own that may feel like, oh gosh, can I really say little Bobby didn't have a great weekend because will you hold that against me, or can I actually say they had a mega meltdown or whatever. Like, as you say, you're supporting the children but you're also supporting the family, but also the fact that you're thinking about when you said about the Tesco and about like building out, what I thought the phrase that came to my head was you're opening out life for the families and for the children. It's so important. And as I said to you at the start, my hat is off to you. I knew you were a phenomenal lady, but like it's your deep empathy, but your experience and the evidence informed way that you've like gone through all of your multiple masters and now doctors. It's like I don't know how to say it. My autistic brain is showing me like just like streams of like knowledge coming from you. It's like you're just so educated in this area, but you have the lived experience as the professional as well. And it's the deep empathy. Like you're literally an example of double empathy in practice. You're seeing both perspectives, meeting the children where they are with no judgment, just trying to create safety for them all. And like when you talk about inclusive classrooms, for me, it's like you're the epitome of what it is to be an inclusive teacher. I just think you're a phenomenal lady.
Oh, thank you so much. I do think, like what you touched on, that whole parental relationship is Huge. Like I spent last summer going into the school and meeting, because obviously I hadn't worked with any of these children before. And I knew that for those parents, like here we are, a whole new class and don't know anybody. And I was like, this is so important. And I went in, and I one particular family, I met them 3 times in the summer. And that's more for them to get to know me, because they have to trust me. They have to trust me. Like they are leaving their child with me every day. And I know how anxious and scary that can be if your child cannot communicate with you what's actually happening during the day. So I suppose for me, building those relationships with parents from the outset, like, and I would spend, like, I'd make a cup of tea for parents. I'd sit there and say, like, tell me. And you can see, like, parents, like you're saying, like they're reluctant to tell you that, well, actually, no, we haven't had sleep, or, and I pride myself now on the relationships that I have with the parents, because a parent, most of my parents will regularly just send me a message first thing in the morning and say, we're up since 2 a.m. And their child's still coming in. I'm very aware of that. And if their child falls asleep, we have a little cozy area. And if their child falls asleep, I will message them straight away and say, look, they have fallen asleep. How long would you like me to let them sleep for? Do you want me to wake them? Do you want me to leave them? Do you want to collect them? What is the best? And I totally understand that. The same in situations like child came in the other morning. The child thought they didn't have school. They had read their calendar wrong. Really distressed. So distressed that they didn't get the bus. Mum drove in. Mum phoned me from the car, and I went out. And I knew as soon as I was approaching the car that the child was so dysregulated. So I got into the back of the car, and I just sat there and I just talked about, we were going to the park. The child really likes going to the park. And I said to Mum, would you like to come in with me? And we can go in and I can show you. There was just different projects and things the child had been working on that we had said Mum was going to come in to see. So Mum saying, yeah, okay. So I got out of the car and the child got out. The child just grabbed my arm, said, no, Mammy. And I said, look, we'll let Mammy come in for a minute. But it was actually, the child didn't want Mum to come in, but was happy to come in with me. And poor Mum, I had to leave her. He was devastated. But we went in. I said, we'll send photos to Mum. But I also was sending photos to Mum so that she would know, because I knew she'd be still sitting out in the car, that the child had calmed down and the child was okay and we were going to go to the park. But like, that can happen at any stage. Like, everything's so unpredictable. We don't know every morning what is going to happen, and that's okay. I plan the day, and if the day doesn't go to plan, that's okay. We'll just change it to the next day. If I know that something's happening that's going to completely throw everybody off, I will preempt for it. If we can be out of the building or we can be going somewhere else. I suppose one of the things as well that I would really ensure is that the SNAs have a really good relationship together. So every Friday, I'm talking about scones, I bring in scones, and near the end of the day, before the children finish, I send them out to get scone, coffee, but to chat about how they're getting on and which children that we rotate every fortnight, which children that are integrating. So they get to have a chat just by themselves about what was working well for this child, what wasn't working. If that child didn't really want to do typing this week, can you make sure you do it next week with them? And then we meet every morning as well. So we go for staff breakfasts, and we've 3 autism classes. So we'd try and do breakfast once a month where we all go and chat about everything not to do with school.
So really it's kind of trust building, but relationship building and feeling safe and seen, and communication is key. Would you say that's kind of, if say a teacher is listening, maybe they're going into an autism class for the first time, would say ever, or maybe going back into an autism class for the first time after many years, I want to have an inclusive classroom, but how do I have my team, myself and my colleagues, my SNAs, how do we work collaboratively, but how do I make them feel seen, heard, understood and respected and so valued? Because
I would say, if you can, try to meet them before. So usually schools do a Crow Park day first, and then children are back in the next day. So what I did was, I knew who the SNAs were. I set up a group and I said, right, we're going to breakfast before we go in for the Crow Park hour. The 4 of us went for breakfast, and then we would have been in our classroom that day, and they were very like, oh, what do you need done? And I was like, no, we need to chat, and we need to talk about the children that are starting, and we need to talk about expectations and the realities of the classroom. I would be I'm very structured in the classroom. Everything is very structured for myself, for the children, so that we all know what's happening this day. Like Monday we do bacon, there's all these different things, but it's really important the SNAs know that they know their timetables, that they know when their breaks are. That's like, little things like that can really stress people out, so it's having all of those things ready for your SNAs, knowing that your timetable is ready to go, knowing that they can start, oh, grand, okay, my break every day when I'm working on this week is 10:15, whatever. Those little things are massive if you've new SNAs to the school, making sure that they know where everything is, making sure they know where the tea and coffee is. We have a press in our room where we'd have like cream crackers and whatever. So, like, it's just that they know that it's our room. It's not my classroom, it's our class. And everything that happens in there is about all of us. And all of the little wins, as we call it, or magic moments, are celebrated by all of us. You know, there's all the little things that happen. So building that relationship, it does take time. But I think that when you're the teacher and you're leading that group, you have to be forward thinking. So you have to be thinking, well, how would I feel in this situation? Okay, they're probably going to be quite nervous if we've never all worked before. And 4 adults together in a very small classroom, that's 4 different personalities, you know, and you need to be aware of that. Like, it's different. But you need to start on the way you want to go, which is in a very positive way, and have very open communication, being able to say to the SNAs, look, this is the way I do it. But if you think that you've another way, or being open to ideas, like we were doing drawing, and one particular child was finding using the paintbrush tricky, and one of the SNAs said, would that finger grip work on a paintbrush? And I said, I never thought of trying it on a paintbrush. And it did, but I'm like, oh, bring all your ideas. It's brilliant. Not every teacher is, and then an SNA mightn't feel comfortable enough to say it. So I suppose it's making sure that everyone in the room knows they're valued so much, and all of their ideas are so important. And like the value of SNAs, and like I would say the same as a parent, without SNAs, like, in schools, it would not be a very good place for children. So I completely value every SNA that I've ever worked with, and I worked as an SNA before I ever trained as a teacher. So I see kind of the aspect and how important the role is. You really are so important as an SNA, and I think teachers definitely really need to see it, but you do need to grow that relationship, and it does take time. But I definitely think having scones and little trips and treats always help.
It's the personal touch, isn't it? It just shows that I see you and I value you. If we're an inclusive classroom, what does that mean? Or an inclusive school, what would stand out to you as like must-dos, for anyone listening? And I know obviously maybe the relationship with the team is obviously essential, but if there was some 5 actionable things maybe they could potentially do, what do you think they might be to make their school as inclusive as they could be, possibly?
I think that collaboration piece that all of our classes in all of our primary or post-primary schools are a part of the school. They're not a second afterthought. And that should be for every school. And so that collaboration piece is across the school. I still hear people say things like over there or that place. And we all know wording. And a lot of the time people are just using wording that's old-fashioned, let's say, and maybe they don't know that it isn't actually nice to
There's no ill intent.
Yeah. So I would say, number one, that all classrooms in a building, they're all part of the school. There is no over there. We're all one. I would say find out as much as you can, if you can support. So if you're a mainstream class teacher and you have autism class teachers, how can you support them best in their role? And that is something that is never really spoken about. But I would always make sure that the class teachers that I'm working with know me, and they know that the only time that I would be calling on them for help or support is when things have gone downhill and I need help and support. And I know I have that help and support with mainstream teachers. But if you're in a mainstream school, and you have autism classes, do reach out to the teachers, even if the children are not integrating maybe into your classroom. If we are going to be inclusive schools across the board, then we need to be working together, everybody. And I think it's really important, because sometimes being in an autism class, it can be a little bit lonely, especially if you're in a different part of the building and you mightn't be out and about as much as other classes. So that would be another part. I think collaboration with class teachers is really important, and having that opportunity to be together and learn from each other, which is a huge part. I think just inclusive schools in general, including everybody for PE, everybody for assembly, everybody for all school activities, which is something our school do really, really well. But things like children going on school tours, I know of someone recently said, oh, well, I just didn't ask the child because they're in the autism class. I said, but maybe you should ask anyway and see, because maybe they could go. And that child actually is going with an SNA to support them. But sometimes I think it's that, not, as you say, it's not of ill intention, but it could be just that they think, some class teacher might think, oh no, they wouldn't like it because it's Emerald Park and it's roller coasters. But you may find out then that that particular child actually really loves Emerald Park and would love.
First to the queue.
Yeah. So it's just finding out and working together, but making sure that inclusive practice is across the board and it is part of everything. So our sports day, our schools tour, that children are invited. Okay, maybe it isn't for them, but just be asked. I just think it's so important, because when children are not asked, it can be really, really hurtful.
Like, I really liked what you said there about it's not over there. As you say, we include everybody. Everybody is valued. Every classroom, we have the highest regard for everybody across the school.
I think that's where I am now, every week in assembly, I am speaking about all of the positive things that are happening in our classroom every week. Be it the trip to Tesco, be it the walk to the park, we waited safely. We're working on road signs, so we're working on our stop and go.
Amazing.
We're using our stop and go signs. We have mini traffic light cones. Now we're actually crossing at the traffic lights. I'm talking about that in assembly. All of those positive things. And I think that for some schools, and especially if autism classes are separate to the building, that what maybe the only news coming back from the autism class may be a negative story, and that's filtering across staff. And therefore then it can breed into this whole idea of that all autism classes, it's all physical, this is going to happen. And the reality is, in an autism class, if you are following the Relate guidelines, if you are following all of the latest guidelines for an autism class, behaviours like they don't really happen in our room. And people kind of go, well, how there must be. And it's like, well, no, because behaviour is communication. And if a child is really dysregulated and they're throwing things, we will put whatever in place to help that child to regulate. It doesn't escalate beyond that. But I think, unfortunately, for some schools, teachers or SNAs have heard one story that happened, and it grows into something else. But I think what we really need to do is change the narrative around how amazing our autism classes are, how talented our children are in our classes. I have a child at the moment doing a project, and every day, like when I do get asked people to come over and pop in to look at this project, and every day I'm blown away. How do you know this? And we're looking up books, and we're looking up, because we can't use devices in our room for different reasons. So everything is like, we're going to the library and we're actually looking up a book, and we have the encyclopedia out at the moment, which is so strange, because obviously for children now, they don't use a lot of books to research.
Oh, yeah, true.
And it's fascinating. It's fascinating. The talent in our room is just amazing. And 3 of the children auditioned for the school panto, and I'm staying back with them. They're in our school panto. Like, that's inclusive practice, whereas maybe 5-10 years ago, that wouldn't have happened. So I suppose I'm always going forward, and I'm always looking at like where the children's talents are and how can we nurture them and how can we help them. But I do think as a whole, a lot of schools need to do a lot of work on how they are talking about their autism classes and how they should be nurturing them, and how they should be actually giving teachers the opportunity to even spend time in an autism class. Like, I have no problem with class teachers coming over. At the moment, I have a teacher who's a support teacher coming over because she's bringing children with her, and I have whole little things set up for those children. And she said to me today, I never thought that I'd actually like to work in an autism class, because all I'd heard was negative things. But she said, now I'm here with you a few weeks, I love it. It's like, we need to dispel all these kind of questions and actually maybe allow for teachers and SNAs to spend time in autism classes and see the amazing work that happens there every day and the growth of the children. Like, how much our class in weeks, let alone since September, like, it's amazing.
I just want to say I'm so honoured that you came on the podcast. I am, as usual, and have always been blown away by how incredible you are as a human being, but also as a professional. So if you're ever wondering what it is to be an inclusive educator, you just need to look up angelacummins.ie, and you're going to find a wealth of knowledge and expertise there. So thanks to Angela, and thanks to everyone for listening for today on the podcast. So thank you.
Thanks so much.